Namaste. Good evening. Welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, with our beloved Alok. Well, today we begin part 2, book 4, the book of birth and quest, beginning with Canto 1, the birth and childhood of the flame. And we do see so much of Mother's early life in this.
Yes, and two, three things, because we were just sharing the mystery of divine birth. And Sri Aurobindo, in Essays on the Gita, speaks about it at great length. And he says that those who know the mystery of the divine birth, this is of course from the Gita directly, when they leave their bodies, they don't go to the realm of death or ignorance, but they come back to the being of the Purushottama. This is the great assurance. Mother puts it in a different way, but the same thing. She says that's why it is said in the Bible. She speaks about Bible. You know, Christ is an avatar that he took birth and he washed the sins of humanity by his blood. It's a symbolic way of expressing some deep mystery. So she says that those who have faith in the divine sacrifice in matter, by the mere power of faith, they shall be redeemed. So this is of course, not a belief system or subscribing to a formal religion. It is faith that the divine sacrifice in matter, that is enough to redeem, because you can't have this faith and this revelation. Actually, if you look at it, it can be seen from another way, that unless the divine himself has picked up and chosen to reveal. So, the avatar's birth, he says, it's a special phenomena. The birth of Divine Mother is the birth of the divine consciousness into matter, the supreme consciousness.
How would you describe the line, a conscious frame was here,
Yes.
a self-born force.
Exactly. So that's just the line that I was coming to from the Gita. Shri Krishna says that though he takes a human birth and the process is the same apparently, but by standing upon his own nature, he takes the human birth. It's a very different process. So it's a conscious birth, conscious frame and a conscious birth.
And self-born.
Self-born. That's what it means. Exactly. Actually, this line is, literally the Gita's line, but lifted to a totally different level of profound truth. So, this is a conscious birth, and what it implies is that when the avatar comes, he brings something new in contact with matter. That's how the mother reveals. And during his lifetime, he keeps applying that power, that force upon matter, so that matter can respond and be transformed. That's why at one place he says that even if the avatar is all alone and there is not a single disciple and nobody around, nobody even knows that he is an avatar, still he will do the work that he has come to do. It doesn't really depend on humanity. But of course, if humanity can respond with openness, faith, it's so much wonderful.
It can be accelerated.
Accelerated and less cataclysmic.
Yes.
But the work itself does not depend. Several places the mother has said. She brings the new consciousness, puts it in contact with matter, and in all those who are around, they respond, don't respond, but she has done that work.
Yes.
So that is the significance of the divine birth, which is what we are going to read. Canto 1, the birth and childhood of the flame.
I'll read the season.
Yes, I know that's your favorite.
So you begin.
Yeah, so flame is very interesting. I mean, at one level one would say the flame, the psychic being is described as a flame. But if you look at it another way, the fire in the Vedas, it's always the divine consciousness and will. So it is that will which takes on a human shape. This comes in Savitri.
And you were speaking about those who are redeemed, but it was Sri Aurobindo, I think, who said that all who passed away in the ashram
Yes, of course.
would be carried straight to the
They will
rest.
come to his abode.
Yes, to come to
There is a but very interesting story about it.
Oh.
Before we,
Yeah.
actually when Mridu passed away, and she was a lady very difficult in temperament, very temperamental. Suicide was threat to suicide was her almost a way of life, it seems, and anger was like on the nose, tip of the nose. So when she passes away, and the mother sees that Sri Aurobindo has come to take her, and there is this luminous symbol on her, Sri Aurobindo symbol on her forehead. So mother remarks, her too? Sri Aurobindo says, yes. It does not depend on their state of consciousness. And then the mother says, what a might, what a power. It does not depend on their state of consciousness. So, of course, always there are some riders and footnotes that it does not mean people can gravitate to Pondicherry for what is it called? Banaras and Haridwar, Mokshadwar. They come for old age that, okay, now it's time to. Yeah, but who knows? Because, nobody would really come and be able to stay. I have seen strange things. People actually coming for some other purpose and leaving the body. So I don't know. We should not calculate with the
No.
human mind. Everything is possible. So this is about the divine birth, and flame, as I said, also conveys that. And again, Sri Aurobindo speaks about this in the Gita. That this is not that, we think divine birth means suddenly he comes and he enters and then he goes away. He has actually been with the play. There are many births. Shri Krishna speaks of that. Many births. The only difference is that he is conscious, and he speaks about Arjuna and he is not conscious. So there have been many births in which he has come. So that is the special psychic being which is formed of the divine, which is different from the way our own psychic being is formed through a different process of evolution, which is more of an individual evolution. But here it's something which is meant for the collective evolution of the race. So, mother's own past lives, we know. Two more things which I remember. One is when Sri Aurobindo was asked by Nagin Doshi that in this life you are here as avatars, what were you doing in your previous lives? Often people say, has anywhere Sri Aurobindo directly said? Sri Aurobindo is himself Maryada Purushottam in his own way, gentleman. Sri Aurobindo did not contradict it. Sri Aurobindo simply said, we were then as avatars or something to that effect. He doesn't say, as vibhutis. Then we were as vibhutis.
Yes.
This time we are as avatars. He doesn't say this time we are as an avatar, but indirectly confirms. Of course, there are other places also where indirectly he has confirmed, and the mother very directly. So then he is asked that, what were you doing as vibhutis? So he says, carrying on the evolution. So the disciple asks, what does that mean? He says, to explain that would mean writing the whole spiritual history of mankind. So in different lives, and the other incident that I was reminded was when Charu Chandra Dutt, several times we have shared it, but always there are occasions when he wrote a letter to, not he, but somebody told him that, do you know Charu? He seems to know you during the revolutionary movement, and he used to call you chief. He said, oh Charu, of course I recognize him. He is one of those with whom I have fought battle of the ages. But in this life I could not call him. My own preoccupations, I suppose, and also because the work to be done this time was of a different kind. When Charu comes, so battle of the ages. So he remembered everybody's lives. There are notes in Sri Aurobindo's records of yoga where he has noted against certain individuals their past life. For instance, Dilip Kumar Roy, he writes Hector. Then before Pavitra, the aspects of Christ and Ramakrishna. There are, many number of them where he has written. So that is the difference. So it is like there is a continuity of consciousness which is not lost. That is the beauty.
Was Nalini's?
Nalini is also, he was, of course, Nalini has said,
Virgil.
Virgil, and they were even as the gardener of
The gardener
the,
of Versailles.
yes, that's right. The French king who was Sri Aurobindo.
Yes.
So we start from here, a minute of these cycles of desire. Around a light she must not dare to touch, hastening towards a far off unknown goal. Earth followed the endless journey of the sun. What a start this is, that, Earth is moving around the sun. She is changing in the process, but too prematurely she should not touch the light, the center. Evolutionary process is a slow process.
But she's a devotee.
Yeah, she's a devotee. She has actually emerged from the sun.
Yes.
That's why she is the special favorite child of the divine. And she has come for this work, and she is moving around the sun. Around a light she must not dare to touch. And then earth followed the endless journey of the sun. So though we think sun is just static, but there is in the sun a dynamic force which is also, actually even in the space it is moving. But even if we leave that aside, the dynamic force which is doing something, even in its seeming inactivity, it is active. Everything on earth is because of the sun. A mind but half awake in the swing of the void. Marvelous line. The Divine Mother is going to come. We have story of Sri Krishna who is in the Palana, who is put in the Jula, swing. And it's a very cradle. It's a very important event. In India it is celebrated that, when baby Krishna is born, Janmashtami, he is in the swing and everybody is doing the swing once or twice and everybody is happy. But what is this swing? The cosmos is the swing for the Lord in a child fountain. So look at the dimension to which Sri Aurobindo uplifts us. What is this swing? And if you really see, everything is moving. And in that, when the divine is born upon earth, what it means. On the bosom of inconscience dreamed out life, and bore this finite world of thought and deed across the immobile trance of the infinite. A vast, immutable silence with her ran, with earth. What is running along with earth? Silence. Again, silence is not dead. It is dynamic. It's pulsating with life which, ran. Look at just one word which changes the whole feel of a word. Otherwise we think of silence as something like an inert state. Prisoner of speed upon a jeweled wheel. The stars which are moving along with the earth, prisoner of speed upon a jeweled wheel. She is communed with the mystic heart in space. So we can imagine that earth is moving. Now this is a vision, cosmic vision, where the stars are moving. And as they are moving day and night, the earth is undergoing a whole change of seasons and everything. It's an amazing image. One could imagine the whole creation as there are mystic poems like that where the stars are seen as, the famous one, Guru Nanak, is the necklace around the Lord. That's beautiful. Even Narsi Mehta's poem, Nikhil Brahmand Mein Ek Tu Hi Hari. So where, you see the stars as the necklace of the Lord. But here is Sri Aurobindo. He's seeing the stars as a jeweled wheel. They are moving, and with it the earth is moving. She is seated, but she is prisoner of her speed. She it's not in her control. Her destiny is controlled by this movement, which is a larger cosmic movement. Amid the ambiguous stillness of the stars, she moved towards some undisclosed event, and a rhythm measured the long whirl of time. So she is being carried helplessly, prisoner of her own speed. She doesn't know where she is going. And the whole universe is carrying her. A ceaseless motion round the purple rim, day after day, sped by like colored spokes, and through a glamour of shifting hues of air, the seasons drew in linked significant dance. the symbol pageant of the changing year. So this now, it's very interesting when we look at the three seasons. At one level, the most mundane level, it's 9 months literally. So it'll start with summer and end with spring. Spring is also when mother is born. Uh, but seasons are symbols. Even in ordinary human life, if you want to understand the four ashramas of human life, it is, you can understand by the seasons. So spring is birth, till whatever adolescence. You're all happy and everything is wonderful, everything is flower. Uh, Mama, Papa are running and the child is enjoying. Then there is summer, heat and toil and everything. Then there is rain, which starts washing all the muck that you have accumulated. There is re-evaluation of life. There is a cleansing. There is all kinds of things happening. Rain is always symbol of purification and life taking a different turn. And after that there is autumn. So what happens in autumn? The leaves begin to be shed, which means you are going within. So it's like going within and preparing now for the next spring. So it's a very beautiful symbol. But here, if we take a close look, it's about the preparation that the earth undergoes for the coming of the avatar. And it starts with summer, the heat, the toil, the labor, the sweat, the blood, the tears that have flown upon earth. If we look at, few hundreds of years, it is summer when mankind must be going through all kinds of suffering and painful passage. When the previous avatars, glory begins to fade. For each age there is an avatar. Treta Yuga there is, Rama, and Dwapar Yuga there is Sri Krishna, and Kali Yuga. And they always come toward the end of the yugas. There is, of course, Sri Aurobindo. So one can see a long preparation. So would you like to read from here? And he starts with summer.
Across the burning languor of the soil paced summer with his pomp of violent noons, and stamped his tyranny of torrid light and the blue seal of a great burnished sky. Next, through its fiery swoon or clotted knot, rain-tide burst in upon torn wings of heat, startled with lightnings air's unquiet drowse, lashed with life-giving streams the torpid soil, overcast with flare and sound and storm-winged dark the star-defended doors of heaven's dim sleep.
So we see that what happens is that for a long period, humanity is undergoing that labor and sweat and pomps of the rich and the mighty and all the great kings. Then the next phase, when you see revolution starting. So just before the avatar comes, revolution start. And if you really look at very closely, historically, I think it's from 1700 or something, you will see revolutions happening. You won't see before that. Before that, the history is as if so dull and dismal. There are empires and emperors going across, marching and subjugating nations after nations, sections of humanity, the pomp and the show, and poor humanity is just. But then starts, and from 1700, there are a number of revolutions which start, right, stretching on to the 20th century beginning. So we see this rain which is beginning to now swell and surge, and we see that summer he is described in just 4 or 5 lines. But the real preparation is this torrid flow of rain. So it's the purification process. And also if we see in yoga, initial that effort and sudden those beautiful flashes and wonderful inner moments, and then a long purification. It is the most painful and the longest process. And that's why here also we see the spring will come later. Those who want the spring before the rain, then you can buy artificial flowers. Fill your house with all the artificial flowers, put some perfume and say, see what is spring. But the authentic spring comes after the rain and the autumn. Rain purifies, then you go within, reflect, go inside, and then you are ready for the blossom.
One time, when no one was taking Amal to the Samadhi, I offered to do so
Okay.
and took him in his wheelchair. And we spoke about this line, the star-defended doors of heaven's dim sleep. What a magnificent... He said, I know that line. I know it. Well, I took him once, and after that there were a dozen boys ready to take him.
Yes.
So,
I mean, everything comes alive.
yes.
All the stars, the sages, the guiding spear points. You can't see beyond, and they also weave. If you really look at the way space is configured, it is because of these shining luminous objects and the forces that between them that weave space and constantly expands into who knows where. I mean, materially.
Or from the gold eye of her paramour, covered with packed cloud veils, the earth's brown face.
So here the sun is the paramour who loves earth.
Yes.
So what they are doing is rain is covering the face of earth with, so that the gold eye should not see. So it is being covered with clouds, as if you are covering the face with hairs. I think it's amazing, touch of romantic poetry, Shingar Ras, as they say, which Sri Aurobindo brings the highest form of Shingar that one can imagine.
Armies of revolution crossed the time field. The clouds' unending march besieged the world. Tempest pronunciamentos claimed the sky, and thunder drums announced the embattled gods.
So this is what we see happening just before the Mother and Sri Aurobindo's coming, and during their coming, and right when they are in the midst, the two great wars, the thunder, the drums, the noise, the revolutions, the clangor, empires being thrown away, impossible things happening, literally. So all that because the avatar is here upon earth.
A traveler from unquiet neighboring seas, the dense maned monsoon rode neighing through earth's hours.
Wow. So it's the horse who is speeding through the monsoon, neighing through the earth's hours.
Thick now, the emissary javelins.
The rain which is coming down is becoming thicker and thicker, stronger, as if whatever remnants are there, they must be washed away.
Enormous lightnings split the horizon's rim, and hurled from the quarters as from contending camps, married heaven's edges, steep and bare and blind. A surge and hiss and onset of huge rain, the long straight sleet drift, clamors of winged storm charge, throngs of wind faces, rushing of wind feet, hurrying, swept through the prone, afflicted plains.
So everything comes alive. The wind gods who are rushing through, wind faces. Surely Sri Aurobindo has seen all these beings. We talk about the 5 elements, and they are beings. Mother speaks about the being of fire, for example, when she is in Japan. She said that yes, and they like to go and set things on fire. We are having now in Australia, California, and all these places. So, and she says you can tell them no, and they will listen to you. So this is the power over elements. Like with Sri Aurobindo, sitting in his room, and all this tempest and storm which used to come, suddenly it is stilled. What we experience now is a wonderful rain. Pondicherry was known for the kind of storms which are literally Trinavrat kind, which will lift up people in a swing and then throw them down. There have been instances of that. So just the power over elements, that he is sitting on the desk with the room open and writing on the desk, and not a sheet of paper flying and not a drop of water entering the room while it is cyclonic outside. So it's...
Mother came in to close the windows. And she saw that there was not a drop of water in the room.
Yes. So this is... but before that, even the avatar has to go through that whole process. It's the spontaneous mastery which comes is not by an arbitrary miracle. It's only by growth of consciousness. That's the beauty. So we have those early days in the ashram when not only the recounts of two interesting cyclonic storms.
Yes.
One is just around the time that mother is going to come, but before her coming. So he describes that it was so torrential that the first floor was this guest house. So first floor was almost filled with rain, with the roof falling down and everything. So they all moved downstairs. Sri Aurobindo and these handful of few disciples. So they moved downstairs and they are standing, below a little roof. And then that also collapsed. And so he has to move further inwards. So he says that was one time he has witnessed that kind of intense. So Sri Aurobindo is not doing any arbitrary miracle. So this experience has to be seen in the background, that it was not through miracle that Sri Aurobindo was writing and said keep quiet. It was a growth of consciousness. He was accustoming matter to listen and obey to the supramental forces which he was embodying and manifesting over a period of time. And the second one which he says, which was very nice, is when there is another hissing and storm and cyclonic, when mother is staying, what was the place where she was staying? Yeah. And then suddenly Sri Aurobindo tells Nalinida, go and fetch the mother. So she moved permanently with Sri Aurobindo. That was the time. So he says it was thanks to this storm. So otherwise, they said he is Maryada Purushottam, perfect gentleman. So the storm became an occasion to move in the mother.
I don't know if any of you had been here in 1972 when the huge cyclone came.
Yeah.
And the first large branch of the service tree was broken. And I was delegated by Parichan to cut the stump so that bark would not tear down. And when I finished, Parichan came running to me and he said, Mother has given you this blessing packet to care for the service tree for the rest of your life.
There is mother's comment on this cyclonic storm in which a branch of the service tree was fallen. And she has given a comment that it is because of the consciousness and lack of receptivity and in the consciousness and resistances because of which this cyclonic storm. So when the other one was more recent, when the big chunk of the service tree, that was I think 2011-12 or sometime during all this.
Yes.
So that time all kinds of material explanations were being given. So I was saying that this is how human nature deceives itself. Mother herself has said in 1972 that this is a sign of the resistances of human consciousness. And the second time it was not just a branch, it was a whole big chunk on one side. Now, of course, it is growing again, and that's their compassion.
I could talk about it for half an hour, but I won't.
Yeah, I know.
But one thing very positive is that the tree is now a national heritage.
Oh, is it?
And it will be taken care of by the government.
So it also, is this, I didn't know this, but this symbolically what occurs to me right now is two things. It means that there is a touch now between the ashram and the government. So at some level the government is involved in some kind of taking care of the ashram, and of what? Of the service tree. So this is something very beautiful. And when was this event? When did they declare it?
It was just after we finished healing the
So which means
severe
which year?
break, 2012, I think.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
So it's very symbolic. I didn't know this. Yes, so we continue. Married heaven's edges steep and bare and blind. Sleet drift, wind faces. This is what we had read. Heaven's waters trailed and dribbled through the drowned land. Then all was a swift stride, a sibilant race or all was tempest, shout, and waters fall. A dimness sagged on the grey floor of day. So, at another level, if you look at it, it's like Sri Aurobindo describing the scene of the pralaya, which he must have been a witness to. If you read his poem, The Rishi, I have a very strong feeling that he recollects that age of mankind when it inhabited some other place, and after the pralaya, the whole shift and all that took place. This is my personal feeling. Rishi of the pole. So surely is describing it in a nutshell. So what is pralaya actually? It is a cleansing process. It drowns all that didn't deserve to be saved. But always the seeds are there. It prepares for a greater coming. So that's how the pralaya works, its purpose. Its dingy, sprawling length joined morn to eve, wallowing in sludge and shower, it reached black dark. So there is this stage which we call as the dark night of the soul, when day and night become one in a reverse way. And all appears as dismal and dark and hopeless. And that is the time when we should know that the grace will never fail us, because the purification is near completion. Day a half darkness wore as its dull dress. Light looked into dawn's tarnished glass and met its own face there, twin to a half lit night's. Downpour and drip and seeping mist swayed all, and turned dry soil to bog and reeking mud. Earth was a quagmire, heaven a dismal block. So now Balaram is doing his job, tilling the soil, and completely its hardness, its resistance, all this is being reduced to mere nothing by the outpourings of the heavens.
Do you feel that this description is more of North India than South India? I've always felt that the seasons were more distinguished there than in
That
Tamil
way.
Nadu.
Yeah. And on a physical plane, yes.
On a physical
perhaps,
plane,
yeah.
yes.
The seasons are much more distinct
Yes.
in the northern side. Like here, we have started experiencing winter
A little bit
for the
more,
last 4 or
little
5
cooler,
years. But
yes.
otherwise, no fan, no question of chadar, bed sheet. But now people need to take a sheet. You switch off the fan. Otherwise, even in summer, I myself remember using the fan even in winter and no sheet. But now you switch off the fan, and in the thick by December end, people are very happy that they can take out their colorful sweaters and style around. Otherwise, snow in Auroville, she has mentioned. Yeah, fir tree. But there was this downpouring of what is called as ole, sleet.
Hail.
Hail, yeah, it was there sometime back, I think last year or something, which was, yes, Pondicherry, somewhere around, which was
Mother
very
said
interesting.
that when the earth was removed to build the lake around the Matrimandir, all that soil would make a mountain on the northern side, and fir trees would be planted, and those fir trees beings need snow. And she said it
They
would
will
come.
call snow.
Yes.
None saw through dank, drenched weeks the dungeon sun. What a beautiful play of words. Even now, you see this line, how it connects to the yoga itself when Sri Aurobindo speaks of the law of the way. So there is a place where he says that even the Divine Mother face appears cold and distant. There is a moment in yoga. Not that she turns away, but that is the state of consciousness. When we are completely drowned and drenched by all kinds of darkness, besieged by it, that even she appears to be cold and distant, as if she has left us to go through our own fate. And yet she is there. And then he says at the end that this is the law of the way. after all, the cup of immortality is not for the weak. So you have to go through it. Even when no turmoil vexed air's somber rest, or a faint ray glimmered through weeping clouds, as a sad smile gleams, veiled by returning tears, all promised brightness failed, at once denied, or soon condemned, died like a brief lived hope. What a magnificent lines describing the human state when it is going through a state of despair and momentarily there is a smile. There is a very nice Urdu couplet about it that, when somebody you know very well, you are going through a very dark phase and depressed and everything is, nothing is good, nothing worth a smile, and someone comes to meet you whom you love and care for. And he asks, "How are you?" So you end up saying, "I am fine." So there is a very nice couplet about it. When I used to come and I would ask Maheshwarji, "How are you?" I mean, I'm talking of physical, after all with age. So he would say, this couplet is, "Unke aane se aa jati hai mukh pe raunak, wo samajhte hain hale bimar acha hai." When I see my loved one, for a moment my face is lit up with joy. And they think that, oh, the patient has improved. So then later on I heard with number of people, this, that brief-lived hope. For a moment, there are some times when so he's describing at once the spiritual, the occult, the psychological and the physical. So in this sense, this is completely in line with Vedic poetry. And those who take Vedas and the Vedic images to be pure physical images, they should understand that all poetry works on many levels. Any poet worth his name, when he is describing a physical thing, is not just describing a physical thing. So I am surprised that how in the Vedas people could think that when he is talking about horses and cows, they are actually talking about physical horses and physical cows. I mean, one has to be very unpoetic, totally stone-eyed, cold-hearted, material scientist. But then you are not fit to interpret the Vedas. But that's how it has been interpreted. Even in poetry we describe, when people describe the moon, they are not describing just the moon.
But think about that line for a moment. A sad smile, veiled by returning tears.
Yes. How beautiful this is, and how real, accurate, close, the mood, the physical atmosphere, the inner truth, everything is harmoniously brought together. Then a last massive deluge thrashed dead mire. You reach that state when you are completely in a helpless state. Lord, you take care. So we must know that he is listening, but before he comes, one last thrashing. Okay. Then a last massive deluge thrashed dead mire, and a subsiding mutter left all still, or only the muddy creep of sinking floods, or only a whisper and green toss of trees. I think we can stop.
It's a good place to stop, I think. Because everything changes so quickly.
Yes, so this is the experience both of inner life, of Earth's collective life. About the world war, Sri Aurobindo said that because the mother had come and the supermind was descending, all the forces of the vital world descended to make sure that this doesn't happen. And she had to go back. And then she comes again. So this is a process all have to go through. So if it is like a dismal block, if all is thrashed by rain and day and night are turning dark, then one must know that a greater dawn is round the corner. And not return a sad smile, but a happy smile full of hope.
The light shall return.
The light shall return.